Well, they are America's children left behind. As immigration remains a divisive issue in the U.S., the number of deportation cases hits a record high. And as a result, parents that are deported are forced to leave behind their children. Many of these kids grew up in the United States, many of them born here, so they're U.S. citizens. According to the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, 45,000 such parents were removed from the U.S. in the first half of this year. Meanwhile, the president has vowed to only deport criminals and not separate families, but in many cases, that is exactly what's happening. To discuss, I'm joined by Axel Caballero, founder of Cuéntame. Axel, welcome. So what happens to children, many of them born here, when their parents are deported?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. One of the main and very, very heartbreaking situations that's happening right now is that children of those that are deported are left to their own devices, pretty much leaving them in foster care. Some of them are even put into adoption because they consider the parent as having broken the law, and so therefore committing or abandoning the child, committing a misdemeanor, abandoning a child, and the child is then given to social services and then being put for adoption and separating the family and then deporting the parent. This is a very, very crucial and very heartbreaking situation that is happening right now, and something that must be addressed as a matter of urgency.
And what happens, I mean, because these children are American citizens, so this is their country, and their parents are being shipped off, and here they are at a young age, forced to fend for themselves in a way. They no longer have the parental guidance. I mean, what does that do to, the future of America's children? What does that? It kind of creates this vicious cycle.
Correct, and a lot of the reports and what's behind the numbers, what's behind these statistics, which now we're seeing about 5,000, 5,200 children who are left to fend for themselves. What we're seeing is really traumatic scars that are left behind. A lot of the children experience the harshness of seeing a parent being taken away with tears. A lot of them see, a future that is no longer theirs, that it's completely out of what they know. They've grown up here with their families. They are American, many of them being born here. And all they know now is a broken family. They have no parents, and they're put into a completely different and really foreign situation. And that could have real harmful repercussions down the line, because we are essentially destroying that family structure that was in place for these children.
Now, the Obama administration set a new record on deportations in 2011. Nearly 400,000 undocumented immigrants removed by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And this is the same president that promised to only remove criminals. So what do you think? Do you think he failed to fulfill that promise?
Well, I think what is happening right now is that in order to pander to a lot of the anti-immigration rhetoric that is happening across the country, that it has taken over our debate over the past few years, some decisions had to be made as far as what the policy would be. We disagree with many of the direction that has taken, but what we're seeing, at least in the last couple of months, with a lot of pressure and a lot of real struggle that a lot of the immigration groups and Latino groups have pushed forth, we're seeing slowly a more sensible outlook to what has happened so far. And particularly in this case with separated families, we're seeing that slowly they're backtracking and seeing more of the complexity of the issue and what really is at stake. And for example, with children, really addressing what are the elements of case-by-case basis. But we're far away from a sensible policy. And this is why we need to push forward particular and sensible policy and immigration legislation that will really address this in the next coming legislatures.
Meanwhile, what we are hearing mostly from Republicans is advocating this hardline, no mercy approach to immigration. We're seeing policy proposals, things like ending in-state tuition for illegal immigrants, calling for the federal government to literally build a fence along the border of the U.S. and Mexico, installing this E-Verify system to make sure that no illegal immigrants are hired. How do you feel about some of these measures that are being proposed?
Well, this is what's crazy about this. Is that on both sides of the equation right now, we're hearing a lot of rhetoric and banter that doesn't apply to sensible solutions. That is the main problem. We know we have an issue at hand, and we can't address it in the appropriate manner. I mean, we're seeing the GOP had just recently adopt stances right before the convention that are pushed forth by Chris Kobach, who wrote SB 1070, and who is tied to groups like FAIR, Federation of Americans for Immigration Reform, which has ties to a nativist individuals and policies. And you can check a video right now that we have on our Facebook page on Cuéntame that exactly pinpoints who is behind that. And this is what's crazy, that the rhetoric has increased to the point where we're talking about building higher fences. We're talking about, adding drones to patrol the border, when in reality, what we should be looking at is what is driving immigration, and particularly, what can we do to really implement sensible policies to make the line shorter for those who want to come, and particularly for those who are here, to really provide that pathway to integrate into society instead of breaking families apart, instead of talking crazy talk about electrified fences at some point, and instead of pandering to groups, extreme right groups that have ulterior motives that are not in line with most Americans feel immigration policy should be.
Okay, I want to bring up what the other argument is, what critics say about this. They say that these parents, that they are the ones to blame because they're the ones that that came to the country illegally in the first place and put their family in this position. What do you say to that argument?
Well, again, we're looking only at the numbers and the statistics and the assertion that this is a crazy decision by parents. Parents are forced to come over here. What we don't understand is a lot of what has been created in Latin America, particularly in Mexico and south of the border, with a lot of the violence that's going on, violence fueled by a lot of the drug policy that we have towards the country. It's forcing families who are not putting their children in risk and danger, but rather who are looking for their children to have a better life, or their future children to have a better life. They're looking for the best in their children. And when we vilify that, when we criminalize that, we're essentially saying that our nation has completely closed off to this idea that we are built by immigrants, and that we're vilifying and criminalizing those that are making and enriching this country.
All right, very interesting, and a sad situation that many children are finding themselves in. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. That was Axel Caballero, founder of Cuéntame.
Thank you.